Hello, hello. It's Angela Roberts with A Wisdom Through the Wild and Beyond. And I'm so excited today because I wanted to revisit the Sacred Dance Summit in its conclusion as the replay ends this weekend. So don't miss it. But I wanted to introduce our amazing and gracious host, Leslie Zehr, because she has really a beautiful vision and is such an expert in this field that how could we not hear from Leslie about who she is and why she created this summit. So it's my honor to be able to share her with you and what she's up to in the world, and just honor the opening that she gave to all of us in the sacred dance world. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She teaches sacred dance, of course, an original and unique method that empowers women and helps them to reconnect to the sacred feminine. She's also, of course, our host and coordinator of the Sacred Dance Summit, a leading expert in aromatherapy, also a hypnotherapist, a reiki master, an astrologer, and a mentor to those on the path to rebirth. She's written 2 books, The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, wonderful book, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And the Alchemy Remedies, Vibrational Essences from Egyptian Flowers and Sacred Sites. So she has also released a CD entitled Navel Portal Activation and Guided Visualizations. That sounds amazing. In 1986, Leslie moved to Egypt, a land that became her profound inspiration, and where she married and raised her 2 children. It is also where she founded and ran a center for women's well-being, learning, and creativity in Cairo. Through dance, Leslie retells the archetypal stories using music, primordial energies, sacred geometry, wave motion, and vibration. Leslie retells, she guided hundreds of women of different nationalities on the path to unlocking the esoteric wisdom buried deep within our psyches. Leslie's lectures and workshops in sacred dance and the Alchemy Remedies have taken her from Cairo, ancient Egyptian temples, and archaeological sites along the Nile River, to studios and centers in New York, Maine, Maryland, Arizona, Washington, and Puerto Rico. She has been interviewed on radio and podcasts and has held webcasts and webinars. She's also led tour groups and hosted retreats in Egypt and in Peru. She currently blogs, holds online courses, makes handmade cosmetics, and teaches workshops. She also works as a consultant for companies in the new emerging aromatherapy market in Egypt. Leslie continues to make her home in this wonderful, wonderful country of Egypt, and let's welcome writer and host of the Dance Summit, Leslie Zehr.
Thank
Hello.
you, Angela.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. This was such a nice idea and a nice way, I think, to close the summit.
Yeah. My pleasure and honor. So I wanted to learn and share with others what inspired you. Share with us what inspired you to do the Sacred Dance Summit, and we'd love to learn, a lot more than that. But let's begin with that.
Well, actually, it was an idea that Karen Brown had, who's one of the speakers on the summit. She's also does counseling for creative entrepreneurs, and we were doing a session, and she said, you really should do a summit, a sacred dance summit. And as soon as she said it, the seed was planted, and I really felt that was something I wanted to do. That was a few months ago. So after she planted the seed, it just quickly began to grow, and things started falling into place. And I would wake up in the middle of the night with someone I wanted to ask to be on the summit. And as I said, things just really fell into place. And I think it brings together obviously she saw that. And I think it's important to have other people reflect things to you, because I think I can't see myself that well. And so when she said this to me, then it made sense. And then other people confirmed, oh yeah, this is what you should be doing. So I think others maybe can see me better than I can see myself, but it really did bring together the things that I love, which is sacred dance. I love working with technology. I love talking to other people. So I think that it really did, as I said, bring together things that are important to me, and things that I think I can do well, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I really felt like what you said, a couple of things in our time together that were interesting, really interesting to me, that I wanted to ask you a bit about. And what's your vision in doing this? You know, what now that you've done it and you took the idea and you planted it and it's grown into fulfillment, what's the next, vision you have with gathering us all together?
Well, I think my thing, my purpose is really about creating sacred space. And I think that that's what I do. And the work I do with the womb is for that reason. The womb is a sacred space. I think it's a very feminine thing. To me, the connecting and the holding space for other people, I love to promote other people. And when I had a center, I used to do that, but it became, I don't know, it was kind of heavy at the end in a way that I think I took the responsibility. And I'm all about community, but maybe you have to make mistakes to to learn. So I wanted to create community. I wanted to create community with the women who were speaking, which we really did. For me, it was such a beautiful experience to work with these 5 amazing women that, as I said, just came to me like, from the ethers. And also to build a greater community with sacred dance, people focusing on one thing. And I love summits. I attend a lot of summits because I think it's a way to educate people. It's a way to present yourself. There are so many options now in the field of well-being or spirituality, that to hear somebody talk about what they do to possibly get an ebook or some kind of example of their work, I think, it's a kind of a try before you buy thing. But I think that's important because not everybody, I shouldn't work with everybody. There are people that will love my work and they should work with me. And then there are other people that we just don't resonate. And I don't want to work with those people because I think they should be working with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we find our tribe.
Have to say, to know if it's what they want. And if they do, then here's yet another person that you can study with or you can interact with. And we've had a lot of interaction on the Facebook group, which was another thing. I wanted to create kind of a place for people to interact more about sacred dance. And yes, there are infinite groups on Facebook about dance, but I do think different people have a unique vision of what that is. So I think that group probably reflects more of what my vision is. And again, people who resonate with that, that's where they should be. And others, if it doesn't, that's fine as well. So my vision is to keep doing this. I want to do maybe 3 summits a year. The next one will be in May. And to continue, for me, it was a wonderful experience. I really didn't know what to expect going into it. I just knew that it was the right thing to do. So I did it. As with most things, I tend to just kind of throw myself in but then later step back and assess, how did it go? Was it effective? And I think it was. As I said, it was a beautiful experience to do it with the women I was working with. The feedback that we've gotten so far is really nice. I think that sacred dance is something that lives deep within women. And so the more women we can touch by just having them listen to somebody talk about it, someone who's passionate about it, I think it awakens something in the individual. And again, for them to find different teachers or different groups that they want to be a part of, because I do think community is really important. And, you know, so let's put it out there as much as we can, give people opportunities to speak so that they can be found by other people.
Yeah.
So that was maybe a big explanation, but but I have a big vision maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Well,
it's really about connecting people and you know, getting it, spreading the word, I suppose. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to your ongoing summits. I think it gives us all an opportunity to connect in a greater way to all the sacred dancers all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. We need to be connected because of what we're doing. We're connecting to the sacred is so important in life right now, for the world, for humanity, and that this practice can really bring about wonderful change in the world. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about, and I'm sure other listeners do too, about you in sacred dance and your personal philosophy around sacred dance. Just what would you like to share about sacred dance and
Well,
how you teach it, and tell us about sacred dance for you.
well, it was, I mean, again, I'm one of those people who started taking dance classes when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I started with tap dance, and then I actually became a competitive ice skater. So I went through that whole thing. And then, as I mentioned in one of the interviews, I think with Karen, the whole competition thing was just not okay for me. So I quit competing. So I went back to dance at that point. My mother's an actress, so I grew up in the theater. So I've done theater again since I was probably 5 years old, mainly like musical comedy. So there was a lot of dancing in that. And so I had done that whole kind of dance, I think. Then the sacred dance for me really came in when I came to Egypt. And again, I'm one of those people, very round, so I was never going to be a ballerina. But Oriental dance, it's actually a plus if you're round. That's when we learn why we have hips as women. So I think that moving to Egypt really, it opened a door. And I took a couple of, you know, belly dance classes here and there just for fun. But the whole sacred dance thing to me really came in during my Uranus opposition, which in astrology is a huge shift. And it was a very auspicious moment for me because I also had Pluto crossing my ascendant, and which is another huge auspicious moment. I happened to be in a temple in Upper Egypt, and so I had this huge download, and it's a longer story than that, so I'm just giving you the highlights. But after that, I just started downloading information. Like a door had been opened at that point. There was obviously some kind of initiation. A door had opened, and I just started downloading. And that's actually how I wrote the book, The Alchemy of Dance, and started teaching it. I started teaching it long before I ever wrote the book. But when I would dance, I always had a pad of paper with me because it would just come and I would just write things down. And I didn't know even what that meant. But then later I would get confirmation about what it meant. So all of the pieces, at least for me, come in out of order. And then the last piece comes in and everything sort of fits together.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately after that, I was asked to teach at someone's studio to teach dance, to teach belly dance and Latin dance. Because I was born in Peru. I've done Latin dance, again, since I could stand up. My mother said I would put the radio on and then just bounce. So that was kind of in my blood. So I started teaching those two things. And it was really interesting because I didn't know what I was doing. And I never said I knew what I was doing. We were doing it for fun. But I would tell women things. I mean, I was in the healing profession at that point. But again, from the downloads, I would just share that information with women. And mainly I was teaching Egyptian women. So I was really sort of floored that they would even listen to what I had to say about belly dance, because they've been doing that since they could stand up, you know? But they
Yeah.
did, and they listened to me, and they would feed back, and things started happening. And then that just kind of grew. And I swore I would never write a book about it, but I did. In 2008, I did write. By then I had been teaching, I think, for maybe 6 years or something. And I really wrote the book more as a backup so that women would not take notes in my class, so that they would just be in the experience, which is a huge part of my philosophy, is just to have the experience and then process it later. And that was how I was going to remedy that situation, was by writing a book about it. But, you know, other people have read the book, and I think it resonates with people who maybe are already doing some kind of sacred dance, and maybe this can just add some layers to whatever they're doing, or a new perspective.
And
So that's how it came in. And and I'm really about the sacredness of it. That's a huge, you were asking me about how I teach. In the course that developed after the Alchemy of Dance, which is dance as a spiritual practice, I go deeply into the basics, one of which I think is creating sacred space.
mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those people that believes you should do these dances out in the disco. I'm very much about doing it in a sacred space, because if you're going to open yourself up to those energies, at least create a container so that you can have the most profound experience. You have to be allowed to be vulnerable in order to let these energies come in. So my suggestion is create your sacred space, go into it, and then you can be vulnerable. You can be permeable. You can let these energies come in, and you're still safe. So I'm very much about sacredness and depth of things. And I think that things should be available to people, but I don't think that it's for everybody. And this is why I say different people should go to different teachers, because that's a huge part of my whole thing. And if you don't agree with that, that's fine. But then I don't think I would be a good teacher for you, because that's a huge part of what I do. I'm very much about sacred space and the sacredness, and for that reason of allowing yourself to open to those. There are things out there, energies out there, or people maybe that don't have good intentions. So I think we can remedy that by protecting ourselves and keeping it sacred. I think that we're in a world where everything is just out there. Everybody's on social media posting pictures of themselves. And where is the sacred? Where is this depth? And I'm all about depth and intensity. And that's who I am. So that's how I teach. That's what I value. And as I said, you know, those people who resonate with that, come on.
Well,
let's have a conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so exciting coming up for you out of this summit. Is I'm excited to hear more in your follow-up emails. You know, for anyone who's interested, who's listening, who wants to learn more, not only about the speakers, but about Leslie and what's about sacred dance, opt into the Sacred Dance Summit, even in this last day, even in its last hours, because then you'll be able to get notifications from Leslie about, you know, some of the things she has coming up that will give you an opportunity to have an experience with sacred dance. And I think that each person can find their sacred dance if you have an interest in it. And that, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the opportunities that you're providing for people coming up?
Well, I would like, after the summit is finished, I would like to continue to support the 5 women, for example, that spoke. You all spoke about up and coming events. So I would like to continue to, you know, give those announcements out as these events that you spoke about come up. So that's that's one thing. The summit, yes, the summit will be over tomorrow or tonight, or I don't know where we are in time or where you are in time because of your time zone. That becomes confusing. But yeah, it is going to be an ongoing thing. So if this is something you're interested in, not just to get the announcement about the next summit, but to see when people have things coming up. And for me, I would like to offer to the participants of the summit, I would like to offer them a discount on my Dance as a Spiritual Practice course. I did, as a free gift, I did have the Kindle version of my book, but I would like to continue to encourage participants to carry on, whether they carry on with me or you or anyone else in the group. I think as we have opportunities for people, I would like to continue to send emails out. And I have no intention of bombarding people with emails because I hate that myself. But I do want to present opportunities to people. So there will be things coming up, you know, from now until the next summit that are related to sacred dance. So I hope people will continue to register and get on that mailing list.
Definitely, because I think that when you're connected and able to send messages to one another, that, you know, you can have an epiphany. We can have moments where we're really receiving some divine messages and we know we're supposed to get it out to people. And so let's stay connected. And we're meant to hear each other's messages. So I'm excited to stay connected and, you know, make sure that everyone jumps in while they can. And I was wondering if you could share just a little bit about what you think are some of the most profound things that have come about in your life through sacred dance, or for some of your dancers, some of the women who participated in your programs. What are some of the things that people can?
Well, honestly, for me, I think everything comes from the dance. Like that is my connection. That is how I open the channel. So I'm a writer, but even before I sit down to write, I very often dance, because that just for me, it's so easy to make that connection through dance. And I realize it isn't for everybody, and everybody's different, and different people have different ways of opening that door. But for me, it really is through dance. So I would say that most probably everything that I've done has been prefaced by dance. I think even like making the Alchemia Remedies, I think, you know, I probably danced my way through that whole thing. And the concept, the greater concept here is the universal dancer. That's the alchemy of dance. The dance portion of it is an analogy for the cosmic dance of co-creation. The universal dancer is the last card in the tarot. That's the gold. That's that point of fusion. So although this is a book about dance, I think that we need ways to practice co-creation. And I'm talking about co-creating with the divine. Now, obviously we can co-create with each other, but in this particular instance, I'm talking about this path of this alchemical path to enlightenment, where that's the point that we're at, where we're dancing with the divine. And I have to say that the ability to do that has helped me. Like, for example, it helped me through my divorce. I was getting information because I was able to put myself in that state. So I think that that is an important place to be, an important skill to develop. And that is the point of learning this physical dance, is so that we can do that greater cosmic dance. And I don't think we have a lot of ways to practice that. That's not like something you're going to learn at school. That's not a normal part of anybody's education. So how do we learn to co-create with the divine when very often even the divine is not spoken about? So that's really, and the dance as a spiritual practice piece that comes first is more directed at creating your sacred space and getting you to that place of allowing the divine to come in, where the alchemy of dance is a bit more complicated and has very specific movements to it. The first part is about making that connection. And as I said, I think that's a skill that we all need, whether you do it through dance or maybe you do it through drawing or writing, or I think there's many ways. And that's why I use the tarot in my book, because I think the first line of the tarot is about those processes that we need to learn. So I think that the book could probably be read and applied to any creative, whether it was painting or collage making or whatever. I think all of those steps could be used in different creative forms. Mine happens to be dance, so that's why I wrote it about dance. But I think that this is important. I think we need ways to practice this co-creation, and that's really what this book is about.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with it. There's very few places in the world in our lives where we are taught about co-creation, even in spiritual development, even in churches, even in mosques, even in, right, we're quite often not taught, how is this dance happening? And when do I surrender? What's my role to play here?
Yeah.
And quite often I think that we get very burned out in our lives and have a lot of other troubles in our lives because, one, we're not connected to the divine and we're not getting that support that we need that's beyond us. We can't always see and know everything. And we can't always trust where information is coming from in this modern age. And I think we're all more familiar with that now that the internet is such a source of information, that we want to be able to trust something greater than that, something beyond all of that, that connects us to truth. And I think creating a sacred practice, connection practice, you know, we're talking about sacred dance because it really has been amazing for us. This is our way. But I also, like you, in doing art or even in my day, this is the way that I embody the spirit. This is the way that I connect with why I'm here. You know, our purpose, how is my gift? How can I align myself with what I'm here to do, and discover those parts of myself that are resistant to doing what I know I really want to do. Those parts of me that are afraid, those parts of me that are having trouble. I think that a sacred practice like this gives us access to divine guidance about that, and it's just something I think people really, I hope more people will open up to, that it's something we can trust and feel safe in, like you're mentioning, and to know through this first introductory course you're doing, just to learn how to create these sacred times for ourselves and discover what's here to be discovered, to become more present with the body and what is this temple that spirit is flowing through. So I am excited about, you know, both the beginning course that you're doing and the book, you know, because people get to have a PDF copy of that, so that if you're wanting to learn more and dive deeper, you know, make sure you sign up for the summit so that you can get Leslie's book. Yeah, and all the other wonderful gifts that the women have given.
Yeah, I think everyone has really provided something very profound for the members of the summit. So I hope everyone has taken advantage of that, because it is a good way to at least begin and to understand different people and how they work and what they're working with.
And is there any final things you'd like to share, Leslie, as we finish up our time together?
No, not really. I think, you know, just thank you, and thank you to everybody who participated and all the listeners, because it really has been a wonderful experience, the feedback, and that's inspiring as well. I mean, I encourage people to give feedback and to write reviews and things like that, because we can't know as the coordinators, or for me writing a book, when somebody writes to me about my book, that, you know, that's how I know how you've been affected. Otherwise, we're all just kind of out here wondering what everybody thinks. So I really appreciate feedback, and that's yet another way to interact. And as I mentioned, we have this Facebook group, the Sacred Dance Experience, which if people are interested, please join, because that's another place for us to continue to interact between summits, and a place to meet other people who are doing the same sort of thing, and maybe people in your area as well. So I guess those would be my closing remarks, is to stay tuned, to, you know, join the mailing list, because we will keep sending things out occasionally, and to join the group and form communities, not just online, but hopefully in embodied communities as well, and dance together. Yeah.
The group's wonderful. I think it gives us an opportunity to have people of so many different backgrounds and faiths. You know, I think the thing for me with sacred dance is that, you know, sometimes people can fear, what is this dance or belief system someone has attached to, and it's combining with their sacred dance practice. And I just want to point out to any listeners that may be with us that whatever your sacred practice is, this is about embodying your sacred practice. So whatever your belief system is, you know, I come out of a Catholic background combined with a lot of other things that I've learned in my life. And so each person has their background and their beliefs, and there's no need for someone to have to do what someone else is doing. It's really about being true to who we are as individuals in our own sacred dance, and to explore what that is. So I want to make sure everyone...
And to take what we can from other people. I mean, even if it's not the same spiritual belief, perhaps you can still take away something about grounding, something about creating sacred space. I mean, you know, find the things that resonate with you. And I do think each person's practice is very individual, whether it's based on a bigger spiritual belief or not. And that's what gives you integrity, is to take those little things and create your own spiritual practice, whether it's dance or whatever. But other people can give you those little pieces that might fit into what you're already doing.
Yeah. And to find community, you know, just to have, I think, in the Facebook group, a place where we can talk about what are the amazing things that happen in these, you know, sacred dance experiences, and what can we do inside these moments of gathering together, whether it's in a personal practice or in a group. What can happen with it, and how can we impact positive change in the world, and enliven ourselves, and just have a more wonderful life. So thank you, Leslie, for, you know, being a leader in this, and for guiding us all through the Sacred Dance Summit. It was an honor to be with you, and we'll look forward to hearing from you very soon. And I just say goodbye to all the listeners and everyone who joined us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela.